In December 1975, a 24-year-old engineer walked into a room full of Kodak executives. He was carrying a box the size of a toaster. He took their photograph. Then he played it back on a television screen. No film, no chemicals, no darkroom. The first photograph ever taken by a handheld digital camera. And the executives did not panic. They didn't even ask him how it worked. They asked why anyone would ever want to take a picture that way. And then they did something far stranger than burying it. They patented it. This is the story of the most expensive patent in corporate history. Now, you already know how it ends. Kodak is gone. So you've probably been told this is a story about a company that was too slow, too blind. A company that missed the future. Every word of that is wrong. Kodak saw the future more clearly than anyone alive. What they chose to do about it is the strangest business decision of the last century. And it should have been impossible, because for 30 years, the thing that was killing this company was also the only thing keeping it alive. Stay to the end, because the last photograph you took on your phone passed through something a Kodak scientist built, and almost no one knows his name. To understand what happened here, you have to stop thinking of Kodak as a camera company. It wasn't one. You'd think a company famous for selling cameras made its money selling cameras. It didn't. Kodak sold its cameras cheap. Sometimes it practically gave them away. The camera was never the product. The film was film, chemicals, paper, developing. You buy the camera once. You buy the film forever. It's the razor and blades model. Give away the razor and sell the blades. And Kodak's blades were extraordinary. Gross margins on film ran close to 70%. Kodak owned the overwhelming majority of the American film market. This was one of the most profitable businesses on the entire planet. Hold that number in your head, 70%, because in a few minutes, it becomes the reason Kodak destroys itself. Which brings us back to the man with the toaster. His name was Steve Sasson. He had been at Kodak barely 2 years. His supervisor had handed him a spare part, a new light sensor called a CCD, and asked him to find out if it was good for anything. Nobody asked him to build a camera. In fact, nobody at Kodak even knew that he was. What he built weighed 8 pounds. It shot only in black and white, 0.01 megapixels, a grid of 100 dots by 100 dots, and it took 23 seconds to record a single image onto a cassette tape. 23 seconds for one photo. By every measure that existed in 1975, it was worse than film. Worse in every single way but one. It didn't need film at all. So Sasson carried it into that room, and he showed them. And Kodak's management gave him their verdict. That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it. And this is where the story you know ends. And the real one begins, because Kodak did not throw the camera away. In 1978, Kodak filed a patent on it. Steve Sasson's name is on that patent. Electronic still camera. Remember it. It is the hinge the entire story turns on. And it wasn't the only one. 2 years earlier, down the hall from Sasson, another Kodak scientist had filed a patent of his own. His name was Bryce Bayer. He had worked out how to make a single sensor see in color, a checkerboard of red, green, and blue filters laid over the chip. Remember him too. He matters more than anyone else in this story. So, by 1978, Kodak owned the two foundational pieces of digital photography, the camera and the color. Then, in 1981, Kodak did something that should have ended the myth of the blind corporation forever. Sony announced an electronic camera, and one of Kodak's largest customers asked a very simple question. Should we be worried about this? So Kodak's head of market intelligence, a man named Vince Baraba, ran a study, backed by the chief executive. He examined the underlying technology. He modeled the adoption curves, film against digital. And the study came back with an answer. Digital photography would replace film, and Kodak had roughly 10 years to prepare for it. This wasn't a rumor. It was not a hunch. It was a documented, quantified warning delivered to the very top of the company in 1981. So they knew. 3 decades before the bankruptcy, they knew. Then why didn't they move? Because of the arithmetic. Look at what Kodak was actually being asked to do. Walk away from a business earning close to 70% margins and walk into a business selling electronics. And Kodak's digital cameras didn't simply earn less. By some estimates, in 2001, Kodak was losing around $60 on every digital camera it sold. Every single one. And here's the part that should stop you. Kodak wasn't losing the digital war. It was winning it. By the end of the 90s, it held over a quarter of the American digital camera market. And it was bleeding money to do it. Winning was the losing move. So Kodak did the only thing its business model would allow. If it could not make money building digital cameras, it would make money owning them. Because every digital camera on Earth was being built on Kodak's patents. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Samsung. The entire digital revolution was standing on Kodak's inventions, and every one of them had to pay for the privilege. Between 2003 and 2010, Kodak collected around $3 billion in licensing fees. $3 billion from the technology that was killing it. Follow the chain here, because this is the part nobody puts together. Kodak invented the weapon. Kodak patented the weapon. Kodak handed the weapon to its own executioners, and then Kodak sent them an invoice every year for 30 years. The company was being kept alive by the very thing that was killing it. But a machine like that has one flaw. Patents do not last forever. And by 2011, the licensing engine broke. It broke fast. $3 billion across 8 years collapsed to $98 million in one. 98 million. Sit with that for a second. A drop of that size in a single year does not just happen. And the reason is uglier than the patents simply running out. Yes, the portfolio was aging, but something else was happening at the same time. Kodak's own bankruptcy filing says it plainly. The companies infringing Kodak's patents had begun to stall, to delay, to simply stop paying. Because they could see Kodak's bank balance. They knew Kodak was now too poor to take anyone to court. The vultures stopped paying the dying man, precisely because he was dying. On the 19th of January 2012, Eastman Kodak filed for bankruptcy. $5.1 billion in assets, $6.8 billion in liabilities. A company that once employed around 145,000 people was down to 19,000. And then came the final insult. Kodak's digital patents went up for sale. The crown jewels. The thing that had paid the bills for a generation. Experts had valued that portfolio in the billions. Around 1,700 of them sold for $94 million. Roughly 2 cents on the dollar. They lost about 95% of their value in under a year. And in Rochester, New York, Kodak's home for a century, the damage outlived the company. Between 2007 and 2018, the economic losses from Kodak's collapse canceled out the growth of every other industry in that city, combined. But here's the part that turns the whole story inside out. You'd think the lesson is simple. Kodak buried the digital camera, and the digital camera killed them. Actually, that patent is the only reason Kodak lasted as long as it did. Think about it for a moment. Film had been dying since the 1990s, so what was paying Kodak's bills right through the 2000s? Digital was. $3 billion of it. Kodak did not die because it patented the camera. Kodak survived an extra 30 years because it patented the camera. The invention was never the murder weapon. The invention was the life support. And when the life support was finally switched off, the company was dead within 12 months. Kodak did not miss the future. Kodak invented the future. patented the future, rented the future out, and then it was evicted from it. Which brings us back to Bryce Bayer, the quiet man down the hall, the one who worked out how to make a single sensor see in color. Take out your phone, photograph anything at all. It doesn't matter what. The light coming through that lens lands on a grid of microscopic filters: red, green, blue. And there are twice as many green ones as red or blue, because green is the color the human eye trusts most. That grid has a name. It is called the Bayer filter, and it is inside virtually every digital camera on this planet. Every phone, every laptop, every satellite, every telescope. Bryce Bayer died in November 2012. The same year, the company he gave his life to went bankrupt. Eastman Kodak is gone, and there is a piece of Kodak inside every photograph you have ever taken.
Subscribe to my channel.